Hi, this is Jeff Littorno. Uh, this is my second video about my books. Last time I talked to you about my book Soul Hostage, right there. This is just a paper, it's not my book, but you get the idea. It's on Kindle and Amazon. You can buy a paperback or read an ebook. This time I wanted to talk to you about my newest book. It just came out a couple weeks ago. It's a zombie book. It's called The Uncommon Cold: Life in the Time of Zombies. It is the first book in a series, a zombie series. So everyone loves zombies. These zombies are a little bit different, I have to warn you. They're not the same zombies you'll see on The Walking Dead. These zombies don't know they're zombies. And I think it makes it a little more interesting. Zombies have been around forever, I guess. I mean, I remember, of course, George Romero's Night of the Living Dead. Still can't watch that movie. Something about the black and white makes it seem more like more real or news footage or sort of documentary almost. I remember being scared as a kid and still scared. So I'll move on. My book, again, the most uncommon cold, part 1, Life in the Time of Zombies, is available now, and I'm going to read the first chapter, I guess. Here we go. The grimy fingers poked slowly into the skin of the stomach. At first, the skin just pushed in and popped back out. But then, as I lifted my head and looked down at my abdomen, the fingers began digging more quickly and with more purpose. In an instant, there were 4 hands, and then maybe 6. They became more like claws. And suddenly the skin was broken. Blood seeped out around the fingers until they were splashing in it. In just seconds, the contents of my body were being pulled out. Long, bloody tubes of flesh and dark-colored organs streamed from my body. Finally, the horror of what was happening struck me, and I opened my mouth to scream. Despite my efforts, no sound came from me. Considering that organs such as my lungs had been removed, the inability to scream should not have come as any surprise. It was then that the panic struggle to force sound from my nearly hollow body always awoke me. Just a dream. Or was it? I'm sorry, my own commentary. I'll keep reading. I forced myself out of bed with the violent images still fresh in my head. Just as it had on many previous days, the dream left me shaken and feeling nauseous. But having a nightmare has never been an acceptable excuse for missing work, so I took a quick shower and got dressed. For the past 6 years, I had been working as a newspaper reporter for the Marin Gazette. Maybe you have heard of it, or maybe not. It is not large as far as newspapers go, but it has an excellent reputation for publishing straightforward, factual stories without a whole lot of political bias. Before starting at the paper, I taught English at a Northern California high school. Why does someone make a career change like that? Let's just say some people are not cut out to be teachers. Anyway, my job probably gave me some insight into the problems of the world lost to the average person. I had access to all the details of events, the figures, photos, and percentages, all the data required for spotting any type of disturbing trend. Sorry, that's a lot of crap. I had no special privilege to the facts, and as far as I know, no one was prepared for the proverbial shit that hit the fan. Looking back on it with some time in between, I can see the first sign that things were headed off the rails came to Northern California with an unusually high number of colds. It seemed like all at once everyone had a cold. Everywhere you looked, people were sneezing, wiping noses, hacking up phlegm, and complaining about feeling lousy. I was not immune from the epidemic of colds, but I managed to press on through the symptoms. Bonnie, my wife, was not quite as lucky. I remember giving her a bad time about letting a little cold knock her off her feet. It seemed like a small thing at the time. Now it is one of about 1,000,000 things that I regret. It is truly astonishing how people who love each other can treat each other with such cruelty. "It's nearly 7, I said, when I saw Bonnie shuffling to the kitchen table, still in her pajamas. "I don't think Principal Thomas will approve of you teaching in your pajamas, even if you are his favorite teacher." My mention of Principal Thomas brought a flash of anger to Bonnie's eyes. She started to say something, but suddenly stopped and took a deep breath. "I don't know about being anyone's favorite teacher, but I already called him sick." She looked at me for a moment before turning toward the refrigerator. If I didn't feel like enough of a jerk already, Bonnie sealed it by pouring me a tall glass of orange juice and setting it on the table in front of me. "You ought to drink this. Maybe it'll keep you from getting this cold that's going around." I looked at the glass and said flatly, "No time. I have an interview with a witness of the attacks at the airport." If Bonnie said anything, I didn't hear it as I grabbed my jacket and headed out of the apartment door. My light brown Jeep was parked in the building's large ground-level garage. I noticed that many of the parking spaces were filled. Typically, when I left home after 7 during the week, the lot was almost empty. Once out of the garage, it was obvious that traffic was much lighter than usual. In fact, the streets were about as empty as I could remember seeing them. I certainly was not complaining. The drive over the Golden Gate Bridge was painless, without the normal stop-and-go traffic. In fact, the entire trip to the airport was smooth sailing. My interview with Jerry Clark was scheduled for 9:30, but thanks to the phenomenal traffic conditions and a stunning availability of parking spaces, I arrived just before 9. I put the extra time to use by grabbing a table in the brightly decorated coffee shop near the airport's entrance. My joy at being able to find a table in the usually crowded cafe was quickly tempered by the realization that there were a number of empty tables around me. I sat down in a bright orange plastic chair, pulled some index cards from my briefcase, and started going over the notes I had taken about the attacks at the airport. Jerry Clark was a customs agent at the gate where the assaults took place. On the afternoon before, a flight from Europe had landed and begun unloading. As it was usual, the just arrived passengers were directed toward the customs booth and stood in long lines waiting to be screened and declare any goods from overseas. Nothing was out of the ordinary until the screaming started. I was looking at the quiet, nearly deserted airport, trying to imagine the long lines of passengers when the waitress arrived. She was a young Asian woman with long black hair and a bright smile, but her dark eyes made me question the sincerity of her expression. "Good morning. What can I get for you today?" "Oh, just a cup of coffee, please. I'm meeting someone here." The waitress did her best to appear interested in the reason for my visit to the airport. "Be right back with your coffee," she said, and smiled. I turned my attention back to my notes and began writing down questions to ask Clark. "Did you notice anything unusual before you heard the screams? How long after the screams did you reach the victim? Can you describe what you saw? The theory is that the attacks were the result of some sort of mass psychosis brought on by the long flight. What is your opinion of that?" By the time I had finished the questions and a cup of coffee, it was after 9:30. Given the lack of customers, I received extra attention from the waitress, who returned to refill my cup and asked if I wanted anything else. "No thanks, but maybe you'll let me ask you some questions." I tried to use my professional journalist voice to avoid sounding like some guy hitting on a waitress in an airport coffee shop. Her giggle and shy manner showed me that I had not succeeded. "What do you want to ask me?" "My name is Kevin Turner, and I'm a reporter for the Marin Gazette. I'm supposed to meet a customs agent, Jerry Clark, to ask him about what happened yesterday afternoon. You know, the attacks?" I could see by her expression that she did know about the attacks. The giggles and the shyness instantly disappeared. "Yes, I saw some really weird people running around right after I heard the screaming, but I don't know exactly what happened." It was clear that she did not like remembering what she was being asked to recall. "Okay, thanks anyway. Hopefully Mr. Clark will have some ideas of what happened." She nodded and smiled and was clearly grateful to get away from me. Well, I guess I should end it here. So it's up to you to keep reading the story, find out what happened at the airport, find out where the story goes from here, and maybe it's all a dream. Who knows? So look for the Most Uncommon Cold, Part 1, or Most Uncommon Cold 1, Life in the Time of Zombies by Jeffrey Littorno. Or my other books, Soul Hostage, Bloom's Desk. They're all good books. They're all good horror books. And everyone loves zombies. Thanks for listening, and let me know what you think. Take care.